Hey everybody, welcome back to Electric Cafe. Today's album review is on Faith No More, their album Angel Dust from, I think 1992 came out. So Faith No More, if you don't know, they really hit the scenes really hard with Epic, which I think was their second album, because they did have kind of a couple underground hits with like Falling to Pieces and I'm blanking on the other track from like '87. But when they hit it big with '89 with Epic, man, that it was epic. Like they were probably the biggest band on the earth for a couple months. Like that song Epic was played everywhere. Like 1989, 1990. I guess their album I guess it came out in '90 because I was a freshman that year, and I mean everybody. I mean you had people, girls and guys, like were shaving their head with the ponytail on the top and shaved from here down, and so that look was in, and it was all kind of because of Mike Patton for the most part. Um, but I mean, they're powerful combination of rock and almost heavy metal. There's definitely a lot of heavy metal riffs in there, but then they also added keyboards, piano. Mike Patton is such a talented. I mean, he's got to be, in some respect, people think he's a genius, and I don't know how to rate that, but when you think about his music and the music he's done under Faith No More, and then also Mr. Bungle, it's hard to deny that if you guys seen him in concert, and they're interesting cover versions that they do, and just really talented artists, and Mike Patton's just an amazing, interesting artist, and this Faith No More album kind of should have got a little bit more hype than it did. Like in a lot of respects, I feel like this is a stronger album than Epic. Although I'm definitely gonna rate that album as well, and then also their first album. But the you get the interesting times about 1992. So 1990 they were huge, right? And then like a lot of bands, um, or a lot of genres, a lot of things changed when Nirvana came out in '91, right? So all of a sudden the rock landscape changed like that. All of a sudden, heavy metal bands were not very cool for the most part. There's only a few bands made it out of the '80s that were metal, like Metallica and Megadeth, and even bands like Motley Crue, or there's so many bands that did make it out of that, but also it probably hurt in a lot of ways a band like Faith No More, because Faith No More wasn't grunge, I mean, or like a alternative rock, because they were still more on the heavier side, and maybe now they're not considered new in 1992. And but this album should have got. I mean, it's still highly regarded, I think, by fans, and I think it, in some respect, didn't get the play that it should have. Um, looking back, and I have a couple ideas about the album that I'll go over, but maybe some opportunities, and then of course mention some good things as well. But just kind of an interesting time. I just remember this album. So I remember I was in my health class in 1990, and there was these two guys that used to try to like bully me, and I was even I didn't really hit my growth spurt till I was a sophomore. So maybe freshman year I was still like maybe like 5'8" or something like that, but I was still on the taller side. But I remember in health class I acted up a lot in health class, and I'm sure I probably annoyed some people because I would make so many jokes, and I ended up getting kicked out of health class. Who gets kicked out of health class? But I was like Beavis and Butthead before Beavis and Butthead. Like you start talking about sex, reproductive organs, and stuff like health, and I'm in the back of the class like laughing and making jokes, and our teacher, um, no offense, I just read I just read that he passed away recently at like age of like 90. But he was one of those students that I think he was like an assistant coach on the football team, and he sort of had to have like a you had to teach like a class in those days, otherwise. And he was like, "Oh yeah, I guess I'll teach health." It was like, he wasn't into it. He was kind of a jerk. But I was probably a jerk too. But it's interesting is that when you have somebody who, like teachers are so important. And even though I didn't think like teachers were influential, like I really respected teachers. I mean, my dad was a teacher, so deep down I did have respect for teachers, and I did want to like and do well for teachers. Like if I liked you as a teacher and I respected you, I would do really well, and I would, I'd be on your side on anything. Um, I remember when I got in a fight in 19, yeah, that year I was a freshman, and I got into a fight with a kid who was telling all these girls to like, it was like during PE class, and it was like raining outside, so you put a bunch of 14-year-old guys and play jungle ball in a small room. You're gonna have some aggressive kids all amped up, and this guy was acting like a jerk to all these girls. So I just went over there and pushed him, and he turned around and like swung for me, and so I swung back, and that was pretty much it. And I got suspended for that. The only time I really got suspended out of school, and so it's just like like so I was still kind of young in that, and but I wanted to do well for teachers, but this particular health teacher he just had no patience. As soon as I made a joke, he would, Tim, go to the detention. And I just like, damn, dude, like, I'm just making a joke. Like, I had one teacher who was the opposite of that. A couple years later, he was awesome. And it was at a Christian school, and that was at a public school. I went to public school freshman, sophomore year, and I went to Christian school junior, and then I went back to that same public school, and I was a senior. And I had this Christian teacher. He was a history teacher. My favorite subject, history. So obviously I liked him, and then I wanted to do good. I would, but I was still bored at school for the most part, and so I would make jokes to make it more interesting and he was such a great teacher. He would laugh at my joke, and then know how to reel me back in. So I'd be like, "Oh, Tim, okay," he would laugh, and then he'd be like, "Oh, Tim, let's get back on the curriculum," and then I'd be like, "Oh, okay," and he would laugh at that, and like he had such a great sense of humor, but when you have a kid and he's acting out, and you immediately put your foot down, and you're like, "Oh, like, like what does that say? Like, what, it doesn't help the situation at all. Like, you gotta have some patience for a kid, or at least have, like, if they would have had like some sort of conversation, was like, I know you like to joke around and stuff like that, but I really need you to focus. I don't mind if you make a joke once in a while. Make sure it's, it doesn't cross the lines. I'll let you do that, but I need you to stay focused, and I need to teach class. If somebody said like that to me, I'd be like, boom, okay, I'm on your side. But these teachers were such asses. They would just be like, go to go to detention, and so I go back in there the next day and I do it again. Because I was like, fuck you. I don't know if I can curse on that, but that's how it was. But anyways, that particular class, there was a couple kids that would bully me. Sometimes they were trying to get me to fight them, and I was just kind of like staying away. It was kind of freshman year. I think they were sophomores, uh, and they were trying to like bully me and stuff. And it's funny, funny that later on, a few years later, they became friends. But um, I was he had a front Faith No More shirt on, and then one day I wore a Cult shirt, and then they were like, "Hey, don't mess with Tim. He's got a cool shirt on. He's a Cult fan." And then I never had issues with them again. That was the cool thing about like like back in those days. It's not like that anymore. I don't think it's like that anymore. Where I'm sure there's some peer pressure of being in the right clique, or being in a different clique or something. But I think it was so important to be like I felt, and I think I was lucky enough to be. But you know, is to be well rounded. Like I wasn't necessarily a jock, although I played sports, but I was into alternative music. So, but then I was a skateboarder. I was, so I wasn't like stuck in one cult. I mean, one one group. Like, you always had your jocks over here, and sort of your skaters were over here, your heavy metal people were over here, and I could kind of drift to certain ones and be okay and be accepted, and thank God for because of that was because of being into cool music and being into Faith No More and stuff like that. Like, you could make friends through music and activities and stuff like that at school. And the more you're into different activities, the more I think people not necessarily respected that or appreciated that, but it was kind of like you were one of them. And that's so important when you're growing up to be accepted and to be accepted by your music taste or your love for something is in some ways is kind of really cool, and it's really I don't know how to put it, but I think it says a lot for now. I mean you think of all the people in the world that hate each other or that like each other, and it's so cool is when you find somebody else and you have something in common with them, and then all the walls break down, right? What better thing than that than music? So yeah, let's move on to rating Faith No More. I'm looking at my notes here. Um, Land of Sunshine opening track. This is kind of classic Faith No More. Strong funk bass. I mean, these are kind of the elements of Faith No More, especially in the early days that made them. You got this strong funky bass. You got some heavy key riffs. Some are hard rock. Some are verging on metal. Mike's unique and varied vocals, right? And then you have like a piano or a keyboard atmosphere. You know, excuse me, and that was kind of the recipe for success for them. This track had a big sounding chorus. I got it at 2 stars. It's a good track. It's a solid opener. Then I got track two is Caffeine. So strong riffs. I like it because it's a little eerie. It kind of experimenting with more of a rock groove on here, kind of extending the rock groove. It's kind of a little bit over 5 minutes, so certainly a heavy track, but it's also kind of like I think in some ways there's a couple instances on here. I think it's track two and I think 6 or 7. I think it's 6, where they're kind of extending the groove and sort of in a way kind of experimenting, so it's not the standard uh, way a track kind of works, right? Like you have an open, you go to verse, you go to a chorus to back to a verse. Like it's trying to kind of go outside of the normal pops. And this is kind of them in some ways. It's kind of Faith and Warriors kind of trying a few different things on this album, and that's one of the things that they try in a couple of songs is trying to kind of work a song out and kind of work in the grooves versus it just being straightforward and verse chorus back to verse chorus and etc. But I got it 1.5 stars. It's in between okay and good. It's okay. Midlife Crisis, one of my favorite songs on the album. Strong beat. It's one of their best songs ever, in my opinion. It's kind of like Epic in a ways. Like if Epic didn't come out and nobody heard of, and really the pop media didn't know Faith No More, and they heard this album, and this was a single, and it came out. I think in some ways, even though grunge had happened, so I think in the same way, I think it would have been a huge song like Epic too. Like it has that kind of sound. It's like to the T, a great song, and it's got Faith No More. I mean, it's a signature song, their signature, but also their signature sound. It's a great balance of eerie atmosphere and rock music. Great beat, breakdown, big strings, great vocals. Song really has everything. I got it 4 stars. It's an excellent song. And then it totally switches up the album and goes to RV, which is kind of like a Mr. Bungle kind of track in a way. And I have that. If you guys know Mr. Bungle or Mike Patton, I have this. I got my note is saying sometimes you just have to sit back and enjoy the ride and not listen in depth or be critical about it, and just enjoy the creativity of Mike Patton, and that means all the unique levels to it. Like you just kind of this is you just it starts and you're kind of like, what is this? It's kind of like a country western thingy. The chorus is kind of catchy. The lyrics are kind of funny. Like, and then it ends and you're like, oh, that's a pretty good track. And so I have it 2 stars, good track. But I mean, going from Midlife Crisis to RV and then into the next track, you're just like, wow. Smaller and smaller. Um, Back into the heavy stuff. This one's the most heavy metal riff on the album. Um, in some ways, it's up there with definitely one of the coolest riffs on the album. The verses are good, great atmosphere, funky bass. Also, kind of experimenting, like I said earlier, with a little bit longer, elongated track that sort of explores a more rock instrumental. I got it 3 stars. Really good track. And then track 6, Everything Ruined, classic. And that's another thing about why Epic was so like even the black people at school liked Epic, like because the beat was so urban and it was almost like a hip hop beat, and even black people at the school were like, this is cool. You know what I mean? Like, um, yeah, it's just, I mean, this has one of those beats. It's kind of a bass line, the piano, and the drums work well together, really strong together, kind of jam really well. The riff in his voice is so powerful. The chorus is actually the letdown on the song, but then when you get to the second time you hear the chorus, it kind of grows on you. Solid guitar solo at the end. I got 3.5 stars. It's my third favorite song on the album. Sorry, fourth favorite song on the album. And then you have Malpractice. This is one of the more heavy metal songs on the album. It has a kind of a beat to it. It doesn't really do anything for me. It's just kind of a straightforward, lackluster, nothing really special about it. Heavy metal song. I gave it 0 stars. Couldn't really find anything great about it. It's a song I never play when I play this album. Anyways, then you have Kindergarten, which I love this song. One of the best riffs, one of the best grooves on the album. Love the way he sings it. The last minute is super sick. Classic Faith No More. I got 3 3/4 songs. It's my third favorite song on the album. Such a kick-ass song. And then I have then Be Aggressive. I got it 1 star. I got no notes on it. Just say it's okay. It's just okay. So you go from a 0 star to a 3 1/4 songs down to 1 star. Just that's this album ends. This album could have dropped off a few songs and been a better album. That's for sure. Then it goes back up to a 4 star song in the single. I don't know if it was the first single or second single, but A Small Victory. The groove is so tight. The bass and the riff is such a potent combo. The bridge is so good. The keyboard is nice. It's classic, classic, classic. 4 stars all day, every day. Then you got Crack Hitler. Pretty good overall. Not too much to say about it. I got a little bit above good at 2 2.25 stars. Jizzlobber. This is one of the harder tracks, and it really works really well on this. I got 3 stars. Very good track too. Midnight Cowboy is kind of an interesting, nice instrumental. The way it ends, I got a little bit better than good at 2.5 stars. So yeah, the overall of this album, it's interesting. Got 2 4 star songs, 4 3 star songs, 2 4 2 star songs, 2 1 star songs, and then one under star at 0. Man, if you take out that 1 star and that 0 star, this album would be a lot better. But the overall, this has some great and underrated songs. Um, I really feel like they took their sound to like dial 11 here, like they turned it like all the way up and then some. Nothing really feels overboard. Nothing really. I mean, they tried some things on here. Some things didn't work. Some things did work. Um, it's got a few classic tracks on here. It's got a few really bad tracks, in my opinion, that don't do anything for me. But I think for somebody else, they might be okay or might be even good. But I'm sure everybody will probably. I mean, I think I would think most people, unless they're a huge Faith No More, and I'm not a huge Faith No More fan, would probably say there's a couple stinkers on here. And for me, that's be aggressive and malpractice. And caffeine's not all that great either. Those are all under 3 stars. Um, but yeah, when you take my average of 32 and a half stars divided by 13, it's 2.5 stars. So right in between good and very good. And I have it on the higher side, almost a very good. I have it at 68 out of 100 for the final score, the overall score of Angel Dust by Faith No More. 68 out of 100. So really strong, almost to very good. You know, it's 13 tracks on here. It's a little bit long. You know, and if you took off 2 or 3 tracks on here, and it was like 10 solid tracks, and then like an outro, just take off two out of here, 2 of these tracks. I think this album would definitely be like a 75. You know, there's just a few tracks that bring it down. But still, I think overall, still a very good album. It's just, I got just a notch below very good if I had to rank it. You know, when you rank things and you put things to number, you put things to paper, and you really critique things, you know, sometimes it's going to be a little bit lower than even you think. And I wouldn't have thought this was less than a very good album, but it's right below it for me, you know. But I would probably say if somebody asked, though, I'd probably still say it's a very good album. But on my scale, the way I have it is kind of just below very good. So still a really good album and some classic songs. I love DJing out Kindergarten. It's such a kick-ass song. Love playing that track. I played that out last time I DJ'd, and it always goes over great because I love the balance. I know I got to get a couple rock songs in there. Sometimes when I play like a new wave set or a 80s and 90s set, I know I got to play some guitar stuff in there. You know, and you know, of course I'm gonna get some industrial in there and some EBM, but like when I can get a track that I really like that's also rock and a little bit industrial or EBM, I'm really happy. And Faith No More kind of hits that on the head for me when I DJ sometimes. So I'm always appreciative of that. But um, Mike Patton is amazing. I'm just curious if you have a favorite Faith No More album. I have only heard their first 3 albums, you know, and I've only heard the first couple Mr. Bungle albums. I've seen them live a couple times, but I don't know any of their albums after like '97. So just curious if you can recommend any Mr. Bungle or Faith No More albums after like '95. I'd be curious to check them out. And curious, what are your thoughts on Angel Dust as an album? Did I rate it too low, or do you think there's any opportunities on the album? What are your thoughts on the album? All right, thanks so much for watching.